Flash Gordon on a fantastic journey into
Flash Gordon's real ending was hidden for a reason. The film that contained it, the one where Ming is defeated, where the Coalition finally holds, where Flash and Dale are married on Mongo, was produced and then deliberately edited before it ever reached Saturday morning. One scene didn't survive that edit, and it's the scene that explains, more than anything else, exactly what kind of villain Ming the Merciless actually was. Today, we're walking through the world of Mongo, the heroes, the coalition they built, and the true ending that most Saturday morning kids never got to see, including the scene that got cut and why its removal changed everything. Because there are two versions of how this story ends, and the difference between them isn't just a missing wedding ceremony. It's a single moment removed before broadcast that tells you something about Ming that 45 years of Saturday morning cartoons never did. If shows that buried their real endings where their audience couldn't find them, that's your thing, subscribing to the Vintage Vault means you'll never miss another one of these. To understand why that ending was hidden and why that scene was cut, you have to start where everything started, with Mongo, and with the man they sent there against his will. The world and heroes, a world already broken.
Hang on, we're going to crash.
Mongo wasn't just another alien planet. It was a world already broken, kingdoms divided, peoples enslaved, a civilization held together only by the iron cruelty of one man's will. When Filmation's The New Adventures of Flash Gordon premiered in 1979, it was Saturday morning animation doing something it rarely bothered to do, taking its own mythology seriously. The show drew from Alex Raymond's original 1930s comic strip, and it carried that pulp grandeur: sky cities, underground kingdoms, desert wastelands, warrior races who had been fighting each other so long they'd almost forgotten what peace looked like. The mission was clear from the first episode. Emperor Ming the Merciless controlled Mongo through terror and deliberate division. He also had his eye on Earth, not for conquest, but for destruction. 3 humans had been pulled into his orbit against their will. What those 3 humans would have to build, and what it would ultimately cost them, was the real story. And it ran deeper than most Saturday morning cartoons ever dared go.
Worlds where peril and adventure await us.
The team.
All I know is we're a long way from nowhere.
Flash Gordon wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a spy, or a scientist, or a man trained for any of what Mongo threw at him. He was an athlete, direct, physical, driven by instinct and a stubborn refusal to leave anyone behind. That was his code. Not strategy, not cunning. No one gets left. On a world where every faction distrusted every other, that made Flash something Mongo hadn't seen in generations. A man people could actually follow. Dr. Hans Zarkov was the mind behind the mission, the scientist who had tracked Ming's threat to Earth and built the rocket that carried them to Mongo. Where Flash acted, Zarkov calculated. Where Flash trusted his gut, Zarkov trusted his instruments. The friction between those two approaches gave the team its rhythm. Together, they weren't just effective, they were complementary. The kind of partnership where neither one survives without the other, and both of them know it. The woman they underestimated.
So many adventures on this strange planet.
Dale Arden was the 3rd member of that first rocket, and the character the show most consistently underestimated on paper, while the animation itself told a different story. She wasn't a background presence. Dale was the emotional core of the team's relationships, the person most clearly capable of reading a room on Mongo. A world of political treachery, shifting alliances, and rulers who smiled while planning executions. On a planet where Flash punched his way through problems and Zarkov calculated his way through them, Dale watched, listened, understood the people around her in ways neither of the men fully could. She was the one who recognized when a potential ally was lying, and when a stated enemy was actually looking for a reason to switch sides. Her relationship with Flash was the show's quiet heartbeat. Not yet resolved, not yet spoken clearly, just there. Under every mission, every near death, every moment they pulled each other back from the edge.
Be one more jewel to be added to my collection of conquests.
The architect of fear.
Hero speaks foolishly. Our score, as you call it.
Ming the Merciless looked exactly like what he was. Robed in imperial crimson and black, face carved into permanent contempt. A man who treated cruelty as an aesthetic preference rather than a tool. He didn't lose his temper. He administered suffering with the calm precision of a bureaucrat filing paperwork. That was what made him genuinely frightening. Ming didn't need to rage. He had already arranged for everything to go his way.
His goal wasn't conquest in the conventional sense. He didn't want to rule Earth, he wanted to erase it, an obstacle beneath his attention, dealt with accordingly. On Mongo, his power rested on keeping every kingdom fractured, every chieftain suspicious of every other. Unity among Mongo's peoples wasn't just a political threat to Ming, it was an existential one. Which meant Flash Gordon's greatest weapon was never a sword or a rocket sled. It was the idea that the divided peoples of Mongo could choose something different. And Ming understood that better than anyone. How he tried to prevent that unity, and what it finally took to break his hold, is the part of this story most viewers never reached. The journey and ending.
And Dale Arden have joined me, Flash Gordon, on a fantastic journey.
The Coalition. The episodic series built its world in layers. Each new kingdom Flash and his companions entered added texture to Mongo. The Hawkmen of Sky City, the Undersea Kingdoms, the Forest People, the Ice World. Every faction had its own grievance, its own history with Ming, its own reason to refuse the very alliance Flash was trying to build. That structure was the show's real engine. It wasn't a simple chase story. It was a coalition building story. And coalition building is hard, even in Saturday morning animation. Every potential ally came with the weight of what Ming had taken from them, and the reasonable suspicion that the stranger asking for their trust was just another variable in an equation that had always ended badly for them. What elevated those episodes above the genre was the consistency of the emotional stakes. Flash wasn't liberating abstract populations. He was meeting individuals, learning what Ming had taken from them specifically, and then asking them to trust a stranger from another planet with nothing to offer except the argument that things could be different. The moment that structure crystallized, when a faction Flash had failed earlier chose to return because of what he demonstrated, not what he'd promised, that was when the show stopped being just another animated adventure. That was when it became something that deserved a real ending. The mission evolves. Across its run, the series kept returning to the same central question. What does it actually take to unite people who have every reason to distrust each other? Flash evolved through that question. He arrived on Mongo as a man of pure instinct. Fight the bad guys, protect the people next to you, keep moving. But Mongo demanded more. It demanded patience, political understanding, the ability to sit across from a ruler who had every reason to stay loyal to Ming and make the case for a different future anyway, knowing the argument might not land today. What did winning actually mean on Mongo? Not just defeating Ming in a single battle. That was never going to be enough. Ming's power was structural. It lived in the divisions he had spent years deepening, in the fear he had cultivated in the people around him. The only way to end it permanently was to close those divisions first, build something strong enough to survive the confrontation, and then face him. The show understood that. It was threading towards something specific. And then, for most viewers, it simply stopped. The ending they buried.
To the devil. It leads eventually to Ming's palace.
The Saturday morning syndicated run of The New Adventures of Flash Gordon ended without resolution. Flash and Dale were not married. Ming was not defeated. The rebellion was not complete. The war for Mongo's freedom, the entire reason these three people had come to this world, remained open. What does it mean for a story to end mid-sentence? No final stand, no last confrontation, no earned conclusion. Just credits, and then nothing. For the kids watching in 1979 and 1980, that was the ending. An absence. A story that kept moving right off the edge of the television set and disappeared somewhere they couldn't follow. Most of them spent the next several decades assuming that was simply how it ended. It hadn't. It had ended somewhere else, somewhere most of those viewers never found. The feature film Flash Gordon, The Greatest Adventure of All, had been produced by Filmation as a primetime special, intended as both the beginning and the true conclusion of this story. The episodic series, in a real sense, was everything that happened in between. Flash and his allies unite the fractured kingdoms of Mongo, the coalition that the entire episodic run had been straining toward, kingdom by kingdom, negotiation by negotiation. They rise against Ming together. Not as separate peoples with separate grievances, but as something Mongo had never managed to produce before. A unified force with a shared purpose. Flash confronts Ming in a final battle. And Ming, rather than a clean villain's execution, is banished to the Phantom Zone. Removed. Contained. A fate that carries its own particular horror, because Ming doesn't end. He simply ceases to have reach. Then Flash Gordon and Dale Arden are married on Mongo. The mission is complete. Earth is safe. Mongo is free. That was the ending that belonged to the series. That was what those Saturday morning episodes were building toward. Most of the kids watching never saw it. Why it disappeared.
We have not found the man who tried to harm you and Miss Arden, but rest assured.
The episodic series concluded its syndicated Saturday morning run in the early 1980s, a casualty of the competitive and fragmented children's television landscape of that era. The story didn't end because it had reached its natural conclusion. It ended because the broadcast window closed. The feature film fared only slightly better. When it was eventually adapted and aired, it was edited down, reshaped for children's television standards, trimmed for time, cleared of anything a network standards department might flag. The conclusion existed, but the version that reached most living rooms was not the version Filmation had made. Censored for a reason. There's one more piece of this story that almost no one knows. Of all the scenes that didn't survive the adaptation process, one stands apart. It wasn't cut for length. It wasn't cut because it was confusing or because the plot didn't need it. It was cut because children's television in 1983 had a very specific limit on what it would show a child, and this scene crossed it. Ming's Grand Vizier, facing the Emperor's certain punishment after a critical failure, chooses to take his own life rather than endure what Ming would do to him. Read that again because it matters. Not defeated in battle, not captured by the heroes, his own most loyal servant, the person with more access to Ming's actual nature than anyone else in the Empire, decides that death is preferable to what comes next. That scene doesn't just add texture, it reframes Ming completely. His cruelty wasn't reserved for his enemies. It was structural, something so constant and so severe that the people closest to him, the ones who served him willingly, feared him more than they feared anything else in the universe. That's the Ming the American adaptation never showed you. The one where his servants don't just obey him. They calculate every single day whether today is the day he decides they've become a liability. That scene was in the film. It did not make it to Saturday morning. And without it, the villain most of us grew up watching was, by design, missing his most important dimension.
What do you want, Flash Gordon?
Hang on to her.
The legacy.
Lord King.
They must not be harmed. Take them alive. I would talk with their leaders.
Flash Gordon never really went away. The property was too embedded in the DNA of science fiction adventure, too connected to the original Alex Raymond strips, to the old serials with Buster Crabbe, to the entire tradition of planetary romance, to simply disappear. The 1980 live-action film arrived the same year the animated series was winding down, with its own interpretation, its own tone, its own cultural footprint. For many people, that film became the definitive Flash Gordon, not the Filmation version, not the serials, but Queen on the soundtrack, and Brian Blessed bellowing from a sky city. That version had its own kind of grandeur, but it was a different story. The animated series occupies a quieter place in the legacy. It was the version that took the mythology most seriously as serialized storytelling. The version that was actually building towards something. The version where the villain's cruelty ran deep enough to terrify even the people who served him. It gave a generation of kids a story they loved, and then it gave most of them an ending they never found. That's the thing about Mongo. It was always worth going back for. Flash Gordon, Dale Arden, and Dr. Zarkov landed on Mongo with nothing but each other, and they left, when they finally got to leave, with a liberated world, a defeated emperor, and a wedding ceremony that most of the audience who loved this show never witnessed. That's the complete story. The one with the hidden ending, the removed scene, and the villain whose own servants feared him more than his enemies did. What stayed with you? Was it Ming's controlled menace? Zarkov's conviction that science could answer anything? Dale's quiet perception? Or Flash's absolute refusal to leave anyone behind? Drop it in the comments. One name, one moment, one episode you still think about. The Vintage Vault goes back for the endings that got left behind. Flash Gordon had one worth finding. For Mongo.